Good evening. I'm Thelma D. Jones, the proud founder of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. Welcome to our 15th anniversary of the founding of the Thelma D. Jones Support Group. It's hard to imagine that 15 years have gone past and we're halfway to 30 years. And just think, at 70, almost 73 years old, and another 30 years, we'll still be here doing the same thing. This is what you call being very optimistic. Um, our theme for the evening is still going strong, empowering individuals to rise, heal, and thrive. And I think that's a good thing because last month our theme was still we rise. And so we are on this rise. And our guest speaker, Dr. Roblyn P. Lewter, will expand more on that theme. So I'd like to recognize her as our guest speaker. And this is a family reunion type thing meeting tonight because Dr. Lita and I live here in River Park. And I want to thank my neighbor, Perry Hanlon, who is so gracious about allowing me to broadcast from her house. And that's really good because she actually has a daughter who is in broadcast journalism. For those of you who watch NPR, Haley Blassingame is a producer with NPR. And did I lose the audience? Oh, I'm back. Okay. So yeah, she's a producer with the 1A. So please
1A.
consider,
Yeah.
yes, please consider tuning in. And she is also a scholarship recipient with the Southwest Neighborhood Assembly Education and Scholarship Task Force, which is a program that I've been an active and engaged part of for more than 20 years. So much for that. And we will return a bit more about the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund, namely our support group. So I'm happy to say that our support group is modeled after the World Bank IMF support group. And I'm very pleased that tonight we have here with us the co-founder of the World Bank's IMF support group, Lorraine Nagy, a colleague. Many of you may know that I spent my earlier years, only more than 33, at the World Bank Group. And during that time, I had the great pleasure of working with Lorraine in a number of capacities, and that friendship still continues, is deepening, and being very supportive of what I am doing. We will hear from Lorraine later on. The mission of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund, and I might add, our monthly support group, which is held every third Wednesday, is the signature program of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund, which started in April of 2010. Our mission is to advocate and improve the overall health and well-being of women and men. And we do that through outreach, support, education, and advocacy. And I'm so happy that Lorraine is here, that she'll be telling us about some of the advocacy work that she is doing. And our vision is to save lives and embrace and achieve a world free of cancer, particularly breast cancer. I am also happy that we will have an opportunity to hear from our survivors, thrivers, champion, breasties, previvors, advocates, and caretakers. Now, when we think about the number 15, I mean, there's a lot of things that come up with the number 15, depending on where you grew up and what your culture was like. But the number 15, as I said, means a lot of things to a lot of people in different cultures. When I think about the number 15 in terms of this being our 15th anniversary, I think of it in a spiritual context, and that the number often symbolizes rest, overcoming challenges, and the manifestation of a harmonious life. And this is something as breast cancer survivors or as human beings, period, we do need this. It is also associated with the acts of grace, suggesting that a period of peace and spiritual renewal is around. And then the number of 15 can also be seen as a sign of steady flow of energy and a powerful connection between the material and spiritual realms. So with that, I would now like to introduce Lorraine Nagy, my former colleague at the World Bank Group, who will give us opening remarks. And I asked if we could please mute if we're not speaking, and to remind everyone that we are being recorded. I welcome Lorraine Nagy, who is with the World Bank Group Staff Association, where she is a huge advocate for our insurance rights. And of course, she'll tell us all about that. Lorraine?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Thelma. Yes, I started at the World Bank in 1982. You probably started earlier. And what you say is so true. No matter what the context, we are still fighting. You just can't step back. There will be new challenges ahead. And so that, if anything of life lessons that I've learned in the breast cancer support group, is this idea of can't do it alone. You absolutely need the beloved circle around you, the community, and there's no giving up. There's just pushing forward, meeting the new challenges. And so I think about what's going on with us right now. And these are very, very challenging times. And the greatest advocacy, I think, that we as survivors in support groups need to do is we need to make sure that the funding remains, that the research continues. You know, being in touch with our congressman, our Senate, being out there as we were on April 5th with signs, you know, for protecting our health care. Now we need to go from the support group that helps us spiritually and shores up our energies to moving out into the wider world where the needs are great and standing with each other. So everything is about community. I mean, that's really what a support group is. It's creating a community around you. And that community is, how do I say that? It gives support in crisis. It gives knowledge so that you can begin to understand. I'm reminded of the of a title of an old book. I don't know if any of you have read it. It's called First You Cry. And it's this Betty Rawlins story of her diagnosis of breast cancer. There's first that stunning realization that I am in this group and I am in a struggle for my life. Just taking that in. And then as we move through that, recognizing, I'm not alone. I can learn from one another. I have a team around me that will protect me. And then as we move further into the treatment and we're sort of putting it into the, into the back, the treatment phase, the idea is how can I give back, which is exactly the conversation that I had with you about 2 years before you established, 17 years ago. You said, I first need to get the care. I need to keep living. I need to get the care that I need. But as soon as I have completed my care, I want to establish a support group in my own community to give information to people, to connect them with resources, and if at all possible, early detection so that more and more lives can be saved. That was the, no, you stated it to me when it was just something that was in your head. And 17 years later, we are still in that position and working things through. So I just want to sort of mention that because we are needing it, I think, even more. We need each one of us to have that same understanding. Our own breast cancer support group started in the workplace. And what happened is that I was studying mammography utilization, and about 5 or 6 women hand wrote into their survey, I am a breast cancer survivor. I am not near my family. I am in a medical system that is not the one that is my home. I need others to help me through, to help me navigate this. So we got those 5 women, Bonnie Chisholm and myself, both working in the medical department. We got them together, and together over the next 16 years, basically, we moved towards meeting monthly, bringing speakers in, participating in Komen walks and living beyond breast cancer. And one very important thing, which is something that works today, we didn't realize it at the time, but what was happening is that women were being forced to come back to work, having had chemo and surgery, and, they'd be off for a couple of weeks and then expected for the next year or 2 of their treatment to simply keep moving. And what we said to the president of the bank at the time, Jim Wolfenson, is we have a duty to care here. And we need to have a system of benefits, disability benefits, where somebody who is battling a serious illness can still maintain their job, be accommodated, and then go back to the workplace, as it were. And that was sort of, at that time, was quite revolutionary. And Jim Wolfenson was the type that he loved revolution. He loved the dialectic. He could move fast. And he said, yes. And so he gave to us and to the human resources folks the mission of creating a disability framework that would enable those who are challenged by life-threatening illnesses to be able to take time off to work, to heal, and to recover. So that is another aspect for me when I think about what does a support group do? It is that intense moment when you're together and working through it, the shock and the pain of it, and getting that support from one another. But then moving out to thinking about what can we do to support research, to maintain, get life-saving care. And of course, what you also did, I believe, in the Thelma Jones, didn't you also get mobile mammography? And you worked in getting people into the clinics and navigating them through the system. Because sometimes people will look upon a system of a healthcare system that is either blind to whatever the minority needs might be, or the particular needs, blind to that, and making it feel more like home. And part of the home is I'm in control. I can ask questions. I get the answers that I need. I can make a decision. Do I want surgery? Or, what do I use this chemo? Do I do this AI inhibitor? Whatever it may be, giving the control back and watching and modeling on others who have done the same. And again, once that wisdom is achieved and the group is solid, it can then be a model for others, an example, and move into advocacy, which is what we did in the breast cancer support group. I think sometimes this idea that I worry about right now, and it's something that I think we need to talk about, and that is that we are really on the cusp of remarkable remarkable treatments, both in the preventive as well as using the immunological or the biological mechanisms that the body itself it can use to fight off the cancer. And for that, the research has to continue. And so I think it's extremely important that that be, part of the mission. And then sharing the knowledge that we learn with others, very important. Bringing people in like Dr. Lewter who can guide us and move forward isn't so important. I wrote battling in the public arena for funding, research, and protecting cancer survivors by preventing the loss of funding for life-saving care. So that I think is probably enough. Me talking. I want to be available in the Q&A to talk about the particulars. Or it was group led, by the way. It was something where it isn't like going into a hospital where you have a social worker, guiding. We created our own. It was from within. We became the advocates. We became the supporters. It was all about community, and that, of course, is the model that you've taken far beyond our group, Thelma, in doing the same. So, with that, I'll go back to muting and answer questions as they come up.
Thank you so much, Lorraine, for sharing that perspective and helping everyone to understand why we are such a great support group, if I must say so myself, because we were modeled after one of the best. And thank you for your mentorship during the beginning and continuation of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund Support Group. Thank you. And now at this point, we will welcome hearing from the voices of our survivors, thrivers, champions, breasties, previvors, advocates, and caretakers. And just to make sure everyone is aware, previvors are people who are at high risk of developing breast cancer in this case, in part because perhaps they may carry the BRCA gene and or they have a family history of breast cancer. And we must remember that even though a person has a family history of it, and even though someone tests for the BRCA genes, they are at high risk, but because you have a family history of it, it does not necessarily mean that you will definitely get breast cancer. But it is important that you are screened regularly and have a conversation with your medical team and to make sure that they know that you have a family history. So why don't I will just pick someone off the screen to start. And Pamela, aren't you lucky that you get to go first to introduce yourself? Oh, okay. All right then. Why don't we go with Scarlett, who has this beautiful smile? And Scarlett is my high school classmate from Snow Hill, North Carolina. She also serves on the board of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. Scarlett?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I was a caregiver for my daughter who was diagnosed with lupus when she was 9. And unfortunately, we lost her in 2016 at the age of 40 through as much medical care and technology that was known at that time. And in 2014, I joined Thelma again in her fight for her community. So today I wrote a few words to sort of reflect what I see with her in the community. And I had to write these things down so that I could be a little bit coherent and that you can follow me. So again, I'm saying hello, everyone. It is my sincere pleasure to write a few words about my friend, Thelma Harper at the time, Jones, who is fondly known as Miss Thelma. I'm a volunteer for the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. There are many other volunteers in numerous capacities, such as support group meetings, facilitators, speakers, medical experts, advisors, food delivery, food distribution, board member, contributing writers for her newsletter, financial donors, non-financial donors as well. As volunteers, we contribute our services in maybe one or two areas, but Thelma is part of every aspect of the organization. Thelma does it all. I have witnessed her superpowers since 2014. This year is her 15th anniversary of the founding of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund Support Group. Thelma takes every need, whether it's financial hardship, transportation to medical appointments, facilitating medical appointments, providing advice, making connections to facilitate care for cancer support in her community. She takes it personally. Her community partners are committed to keeping her organization going to provide outreach, education, and support. Every month, just like this month, she brings together dynamic experts and supporters. In addition, she is constantly adding partners and supporters to continue the life-saving work she does every day. I applaud Thelma for her dedication and unwavering service to her community to improve the quality of life and extension of the years of life through education awareness, early detection, and the best medical support available. I just find it fascinating, all of her connections. And the thing is, initially, you don't really volunteer to help because you don't know what it means. But once you start, you develop a passion to help because you see the outcome of her services. So again, this evening on the 15th anniversary, I continue to salute you and may God bless you and you continue the services because the community needs it a great deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett, for that beautiful tribute. This is how we roll from Snow Hill, North Carolina. Thank you. Denise, with your beautiful smile. Denise and both Scarlett are Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund ambassadors.
Good evening, ladies. I'm speechless right now, but it's all good. I am a 23-year breast cancer survivor. 23 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer, and I didn't have a clue of everything that was involved with the journey. But since then, I appreciate you, Thelma, and the guest speakers that you bring to the support group. And because of that, our guest speakers are outstanding. We share a lot about from resources to what's happening in the community, and they come from all walks of life. I've learned a lot, and by being an ambassador, I feel really comfortable now going out and sharing my story and also talking to women my age group who I think all forgot that they still have to get a mammogram, they still have to do self-exam, and also with women who are going through that journey that I walk kind of alone. I'm there to give them hope and a helping hand. So thank you and congratulations for 15 years and keep doing what you're doing, sharing and giving and making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much. Next, Alan Herbert, who is with us from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Thank you so much. Thelma has been a godsend to me. She was introduced by former, I guess, Commander Redskin Ken Harvey. and it has been a journey. She has put me in a network. I did Thrive Cancer Resort or retreat, and I just met so many people. I just recently did a TV interview with my oncologist. I focus on, just to give you a very brief, I focus on the space cancer research. I'm an aerospace engineer, and I have been very involved in the space world. I lived in Abu Dhabi and Dubai for 4 years, where I handled the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. And I sent many experiments up to the space station. Had to come back, came to Vegas, started my cancer spread. So I had to come back here. And but before that, everyone, I didn't even talk about it because as a man with breast cancer, you really don't talk about it. And so, but now I talk about it to everybody. And so it's important. And again, right before I came on, I was even talking to my urologist because I checked, because I'm a Black man. I am still, because of my genetic testing, I am very much susceptible to prostate cancer, and I have 2 sons. And so I had to tell them. But it has been a great journey. I started last year sometime with Thelma. I haven't been there the 15 years, but I hope to be with you guys longer. I'm looking for, through space, a cure for every cancer. But, people don't realize that, once we go out into space, there may be some new cancers. And so it's not, this is not something we can just let go. And, we're not in the Star Trek world where everything is cured. And so really ending this, I just really thank Thelma for everything she's done to get me out there to really talk about it, because as I said before, I never really talked about it. And now people are inviting me to speak in Kenya and Rwanda. I'm part of an organization called AstroAid that deals with global health using space technology. Basically, it's really great to be on a call with people from all over the world. It just really brightens my heart to see that. So Thelma, thank you so much. Many more years to the foundation, and I'm here to help any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. And we met virtually, and so 3 weeks ago, we actually had the opportunity of meeting each other because I have to make sure that he was invited to the National Consortium of Breast Centers, and NCBC had its annual conference in Vegas, which is where Alan lived. So we literally got to meet each other in person and connected him to some people there, and he ended up getting an interview. I didn't even get an interview myself. So, we have to be careful how we refer other people because they take all of our thunder. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I am so happy that the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund can help you to get your story out, Alan. Thank you. And I noticed Roberta Bale just came on, and speaking of connections, for the past few years in a row, Roberta has sought my help for guest speakers. And just recently, I referred her to Alan, and Alan was their guest speaker when they were in Vegas. So, Roberta, it is all yours.
Hi, good afternoon. Good evening, Alan. I'm Roberta Bell, and thanks to Thelma, I met Alan Herbert and invited him to speak at the National Bar Association, the Spouses Group. We were in Las Vegas last year, and he and his wife came, and he did a wonderful job. So when I saw his name, I said, I must speak to Alan. Thank you very much, Alan, and thank you, Thelma. Because you suggested a couple of speakers for me. I met Thelma around 15 years ago. Well, I learned about her organization from Ray Michael Bridgewater, I needed this. I needed that organization at that time, and he said, "Why don't you join this breast cancer support group?" And I did. And I've been sort of hanging out with Thelma. We serve on a committee at Howard University, the Howard University Cancer Center. Thelma and I both serve on that council. So congratulations, Thelma. Thelma has a spirit of service, and I know she has many more years to come. And I look forward to doing whatever I can with Thelma when I can, because I support everything that she's doing. So Thelma, again, congratulations to you, and I wish for many, many, many years more of service to the DC community and the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And Roberta, you're a survivor of how many years? Did I miss that?
So it's 29 years.
Okay. And because the work that you have done over the years is so special, can you just share with the audience your profession?
I worked at Howard for 44 years. I retired in 2021, but at Howard, we just started every Wednesday wearing pink. One of our coworkers was diagnosed with breast cancer way back when. And so we started supporting the cancer center. So every year we make a donation, this group of friends and coworkers, we make a donation to Howard, and we give them money for their patient services, because sometimes patients come and they need transportation, they need, food and whatever. But every year for the last, I don't even know how many years now, in October, we make a donation to Howard University Cancer Center for Patient Services. Thank you, Thelma.
And you were a nurse, right?
I'm a registered nurse. I worked in maternity with high risk in the NICU, actually, with sick babies for 44 years at Howard.
Okay, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Angie Walker.
Good evening, everyone that's online today. Thelma, congratulations. Happy 15 years. And I've been knowing Thelma for a lot longer than that, when there was just little Jamal. So we go back a long way, okay? But I lived in Southwest, and of course, that's how I met Thelma. And I am a, excuse me, 27-year breast cancer survivor. Through Thelma, I was able to listen to all the great speakers. I was able to get genetic testing, and the BRCA2 gene, and that in itself was a journey, because I was diagnosed, didn't know that I had the gene. And of course, being an advocate for myself, I had to get a new doctor. And but with that, of course, then you get the chance of getting breast cancer, uterine cancer. So with that, I was able to have the surgery, total hysterectomy, so that I would not have to worry about getting uterine cancer or cervical cancer. So all of that came through the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund, because of all the great speakers that we've had. And when you listen, you learn. And I'm just so, so grateful for each and every person that I have met, and that I get a chance to have such a great camaraderie with, and especially when we're get back to the in-person meetings, which has always been wonderful. And it's just getting in and helping out wherever we can. And Thelma has been such a great help to people that she don't even know. And you are truly a blessing to Southwest, because you are the mayor of Southwest, if you didn't know that. But I do thank you for all that you do. continued blessings upon you and all the work that you do. And that's touching all our hearts so that we can be blessings to all those people that we come in contact with. And I mean, it's church, work, just walking down the street. I had a pink shirt on, breast cancer, and someone stopped me and it's like, well, you just need to come and join our group. So you're not in this alone. So, but thank you, Thelma, for all that you do. 15 years is just the beginning, my girl. We will continue. Blessings. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Angie is also one of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund ambassadors. And next, we were going to go to Alejandra Hurtado de Mendoza. Alejandra is a professor of oncology, associate professor of oncology at Georgetown University. Dr. Mendoza. Well, she might say she might be in her other role as mommy. I think, are you muted? No, you're okay.
Hi everyone. So it's a pleasure for me to be here at another meeting. I've known Ms. Jones since at least 10 years ago. We were sharing the story how we met, and Ms. Jones was helping us do a research on hormonal therapy adherence, and she was instrumental in helping do that work. And since then, we were very closely together in very different projects, including projects for COVID-19, projects to improve communication between cancer survivors and providers, projects about acupressure to improve well-being among breast cancer survivors. And I'm hoping to continue this partnership and friendship with Ms. Jones. I have witnessed firsthand all her strength, and I am eternally grateful for how she always brings us together. So I just would like to say thank you. And here, it's my little one who's ready for bed.
Okay. Thank you, Alejandra. And at our next meeting on Wednesday, May 21st, Alejandra will be the MC, and our guest speaker will be Dr. Elma Huerta, who is with GW. So I think you may know him, Robin, or you may have come in contact with him. So mark your calendars if you haven't already for Wednesday, May 21st, to welcome back Dr. Mendoza and Dr. Huerta. Okay. Sergio.
Yes, I'm here. How can
Well, we thought you were in Hawaii.
I? Yes, sorry. How can I help?
Oh, so you to introduce yourself.
Yes. My name is Sergio Jimenez. I'm originally from Mexico. And I moved here because I got married, and after 8 years being married, my husband passed away from lung cancer. And I've been working with Miss Thelma for the last 3-4 years, I think. I lost the count. And I love working here and helping in anything that can accomplish Thelma's goals. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And when we talk about reaching out in Mexico, Sergio has spoken and provided technical assistance from Mexico a few times. It always causes my hair to get a little grayer each time he's in Mexico because, you know, it's the time difference, and Mexico is like Snow Hill, North Carolina. Sometimes you have internet access and sometimes you don't. So when you have to put on a program and he's in Mexico, I always
Yes.
get a few more gray strands. But thank you, it works out. And there is someone with an Android phone. Would you like to introduce yourself? Okay. Did I omit anyone? And I might mention that Pamela, who's unable to speak, and I just met about, well, less than a month ago when we attended a retreat at Smith Center for Healing and the Arts. And it was a wonderful retreat to help us to restore ourselves mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and even nutritionally. So I'm happy to see Pamela here. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't give our host, or who is hosting us, Perry Hamlin, to introduce herself. Okay. Thank you. So Perry would like to be introduced the next time. So I think that we will not speak, because I've already introduced her and told you about her daughter, who's a producer for NPR, the 1A show. So if you haven't watched that, I hope you will. And I think now we have covered everyone. And at this point, I am happy to introduce our guest speaker, who now knows a bit about everyone who is in our listening audience, or we know there are people might be
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Oh, sorry, that's Siri. So, and if you're on Facebook or Instagram and would like to send us a message, please do. So, as I said, at this point, I am happy to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Roblyn P. Lewter, who is a motivational speaker, psychologist, and global change maker. Dr. Lewter is a dynamic international psychologist, speaker, and human rights advocate with over 28 years of experience in the mental health field. She holds advanced degrees in counseling psychology, healthcare administration, and business administration, and has served as a therapist, trauma recovery expert, and global consultant. Dr. Lewter's work spans continents, empowering communities through healing, cultural intelligence, and resilience. Her upcoming book, Squeezing the Lemons, invites audiences to live boldly, authentically, and without regrets. And with that, I am pleased to introduce our guest speaker for the hour, who will speak to us on her theme about empowering individuals to rise, heal, and thrive. Dr. Lewter.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And good evening, everyone. I have to say, it's such an honor. I am really pleased with the way the meeting has gone, because to hear everyone's story, to recognize that I'm in this space with so many warriors, advocates, survivors, thrivers, I have to say, I'm just in awe. Now, I want to start by letting you know that I just returned from a long journey from South Africa, so my body is starting to feel it a bit. And while my body might be weary, this evening, listening to everyone, hearing the amazing work that Ms. Thelma has done over the years, and everybody else in the advocacy, my spirit feels energized. And I knew I had to be here with you tonight. I really did, because I believe in the power of what this support group represents, the resilience of human spirit. That's my passion. And so our theme tonight is still going strong, empowering individuals to rise, to heal, and thrive. And I want to say that these are not just pretty words. This is a revolution. It's a call. It's a manifesto for how we live, how we fight, and how we rise. And this is something I truly believe in, because I believe with everything in me that our minds are more powerful than what we give them credit for. That healing isn't just physical, it's mental, it's emotional, and it's spiritual. So I was telling Mrs. Thelma that years ago, I faced a health scare. And I had this medical issue that happened to me. But to make a long story short, when I got a call, I was working. I was directing a program. I had 2 young kids. I was a mom. I was, doing everything that I do every day. And I knew I wasn't well, and I had gone to the doctor, and, I'd had this issue for years since I was an undergrad. So I kind of recognized some of the symptoms. Everything seemed the same. And I had a terrible health scare when I was in undergrad, kind of similar, where I almost lost my life. And so I went to the doctor and asked him to run tests. The doctor didn't follow back up with me. And so I remember being at a birthday party with my son, and I got a call saying, we're not sure if she's still alive, but if she is, we're trying to reach Roblyn Lewter. And when I told the doctor it was me, he couldn't believe I was still alive, but told me I needed to get to the hospital, Sibley Hospital, right away. And the doctor came in, and he kept asking me, he says, you don't understand, this is a medical miracle. Nothing in our medical books say that you should still be alive. I had a blood condition, and so I had no blood. He says, you have no blood in your body. He says, and you were still working? I said, yes, sir. And he says, I said, I have 2 kids. I have to work. I was directing a program. And he said that I shouldn't have survived, but I was there. I did. And I believe that I did. It wasn't because, of course it wasn't because I had some amazing treatment, and I don't think it was luck. I believe that I survived that medical condition because I refused to feed the illness with fear. I chose to feed my spirit with belief. You see, what we focus on expands. And if you focus on sickness, fear grows. But if you focus on life, on dreams, on joy, on love and purpose, then you give your cells a reason to fight. You tell your body, I still have something to do here. Healing begins the moment that we say, I'm not my diagnosis. I'm not a statistic, and I'm not done yet. And there's this neuroscientist I deeply respect, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who says that where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And he teaches that when we change our thoughts, we change our brain, we change our body, we change our life. What you think about, you bring about. What you think about, you bring about. And so when we start to think greater than how we feel, we become creators of our own healing, of our future, and of our freedom. So when I think back to myself, I didn't just survive, because of medicine or what medicine did or did not. I survived because I refused to believe that I was done. This support group is so important. And Mrs. Thelma had asked me, she knew I was going to be traveling from South Africa, and I literally just got back this afternoon. And she says, are you sure? Will you be tired? Can you do this? And I said, no, I have to do this. And this is so important to me because my cousin, my sister in spirit, we were same age, my same age cousin who I've known my entire life. She passed away on her daughter's 9th birthday a couple of years ago. And that's not the story that I'm here to tell about. The story that I think about is the fight, because she wasn't just fighting cancer. She was fighting to dream, to laugh, to dance, to live while she was still alive. And I would have to tell you, I was with her every step of the way. And together, we didn't talk about death. We didn't even talk about her sickness. We talked about living out loud. I remember one time we were in the hospital room and they had to close the door because we were having so much fun and singing. We talked about her dreams. We talked about her daughter's future and the legacy she would leave. And you know what? I truly believe that gave her more time, not by denying the diagnosis, but by refusing to let it define her. And while I lost my cousin a few years ago, life has a way of sending us new sisters to walk with, because a dear friend of mine who once worked for me years ago in Baltimore, Maryland, became like family to me when I purchased a home a few years ago during the pandemic. I purchased a home in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she ended up moving from Baltimore, Maryland to Charlotte around the same time. And so she had breast cancer previously and was in remission, and it has come back now, so she's dealing with that. But just a few weeks ago, we were dancing and laughing at this huge St. Patrick's Day celebration in Georgia because we decided that we're going to dance, we're going to live, we're going to celebrate. And yes, she recently had a mastectomy, and yes, the cancer has returned, but her spirit is unshaken. Her smile is unstoppable, and her faith and joy, they're still rising. And she reminds me every day that healing doesn't mean perfection. It means choosing life again and again and again and again, even when it hurts, and especially when it hurts. So, still going strong. When I saw that, I said, what a declaration. Every scar on your body is proof that you've survived something that tried to break you, but you're still here, you're still rising, you're still claiming joy, and that is power. You see, healing is not about medicine, it's about meaning. It's about deciding to wake up, making a decision to wake up every day and say, this life is still mine, and I get to write that ending. This life is still mine, and I get to write that ending. And thriving, what thriving means, you don't just survive the storm, you grow wings inside of it. You become someone stronger, wiser, and more beautiful than you ever imagined. And that's what I saw when everyone was telling their stories today at the beginning. That's what I saw. I saw people who have grown wings, who've become stronger, who've become wiser, who've become more beautiful than what they ever imagined. I saw warriors who know that they're the architects of their life. That, we may not be able to control everything that happens, but we absolutely control how we feel about it, what we think about it, and what we do with that. We absolutely control how we interpret the narrative of our life. See, empowerment isn't just on us. Empowerment is what we pass on to others. I'm empowered by the warriors that are here. I'm empowered by Mrs. Thelma. I'm empowered by everybody that's here and all of the advocacy work that you do each and every day. I'm empowered by you showing up tonight. Empowerment, again, is what we pass on. What we pass on to our daughters, to our sons, and to our communities. Because when they see us rise, they learn that they can too. So your survival gives somebody else permission to start. And that's why it's so important that we share our stories. Because when we're surviving in our spirit, when we're surviving in our minds, when we're surviving in our hearts, then we're giving other people permission to start. Your healing creates a blueprint for someone else's breakthrough. And this is so very important. And I know Mrs. Thelma told me I only had like 10 or 15 minutes, so I don't want to go on and on and on. But I want to say that no matter where you are in your journey, I encourage you to keep going, keep laughing, keep dancing, keep dreaming, keep loving. I encourage you to remember that every day we wake up is the first day of our life. Every moment is the first moment of your life. Every second, you are the architect of your life. There are going to be so many things that happen to us that are outside of our control. So many things that we're dealing with, from policies with the government to things happening with our health that may be outside of our control. But what is inside of our control is how we interpret it. You know, when I was just in South Africa, and I visited and I've been to the Apartheid Museum a few times in South Africa, but this time I found myself just kind of staring and mesmerized by Nelson Mandela. And just thinking about how, although he was incarcerated outside of his control for 27 years, unfairly outside of his control, although he was denied so many things, he could only write 2 letters a year, 500 words that were really edited and read, and only had 1 visit every year. But he made a decision that what he could control was his mind. He could control his spirit. He could control his heart. He could control his will to keep going. So I say this to you again, keep going. As I said, keep laughing, keep dancing, keep dreaming, keep loving, because healing isn't a straight line. It's a sacred dance. And thriving is what happens when you remember who you are. Power beyond measure, beautiful beyond condition, and unstoppable beyond fear. Unstoppable beyond fear. So everyone tonight who's here, and everyone who isn't here, and everyone who watches, you're not just survivors. You are architects, and not just architects of your life. You're architects of hope, because the entire world is watching. I listened to see the stretch of Mrs. Thelma's work, the stretch of everybody's work that's here. The whole entire world is watching. So you're architects of hope. And the entire world is learning and healing because of all of you. I am changed tonight because of all of you. Still going strong? Yes. And the best is still ahead. You know, I want to invite you to constantly tell yourself, wherever you are, and in those moments, and share this with anyone else, in those moments where you may lose hope, sometimes with our government, sometimes with life, sometimes with our health, sometimes with our doctors. I want you to remind yourself to put a hand over your heart and just tell yourself, I'm still going strong. I'm rising. I'm healing. I'm thriving. I'm rising. I'm healing. I'm thriving. So I just want to say that it is an absolute honor tonight. It is an honor to be here with you. It's an honor to see so many warriors and spirits, so many life architects. That's like what I like to call us, life architects, who's designing our lives, who's designing how we interpret what happens to us, who's living a life full, who's squeezing the lemon out of life and squeezing it to every drop, living life full, who's dancing in the rain, who's smiling in the storms. And remember that you give hope. What you're doing with this support group is not just about you. And it's not just about your family. As I said, the world is watching. It's giving hope to everyone. So again, this call to action, and I think it's so empowering, is rising, healing, and thriving. Still going strong. After 15 years, Mrs. Thelma, thank you for still going strong. Thank you for having an amazing organization. Thank you for giving so many of us hope and purpose. And we honor you. We honor what you do. We honor the life that you speak into everyone. We honor the advocacy that you give all of us. Thank you for your work. Thank you. And thank you all for giving me a few moments tonight to speak to you. I hope I did not go over my time. I tried to keep it within the 10 to 15-minute time frame because this is something that I am just so passionate about. I will tell you, it's just a real passion of mine to see people live life full, and to recognize that our minds, you're the architect of your life again, and our minds control so very much. I will say that mind-body connection, right? Our bodies often respond to our minds. What you tell your body will do. So let's keep going, let's keep rising, and let's keep spreading this amazing work around the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And as you were talking, I couldn't help from not thinking about some of the challenges that you've had as an individual. You touched on it a little bit, but I think the audience would benefit from hearing a little bit more about some of the deeper challenges that you experienced and how you use your word to thrive and move beyond your challenge. So can you just take a minute or two to talk about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and I will go and I will say that this is something that I think has been so personally important to me, because even when I look at my own family, in my family, I grew up, I saw so many people who would often give into these things, give into different things that were happening to them. And that was something, I started to think early on about that mind-body connection. But I will tell you that I had for example, and what I kind of mentioned in my speech, I had a blood disorder. And so when I was undergrad, I became very ill, very sick. And I didn't know it. And the day that I think it probably, everything came to a head, I was going to my work-study job. I realized I was just awfully tired. I just was more tired than I'd ever felt in life. And so I decided not to go to the work-study job. I went home and started telling my father I didn't really feel well. Something was wrong. And by the time my dad rushed me kind of to the hospital, because I was going in and out of consciousness, I passed out. I was going back and forth. And by the time I got to the hospital, my organs had started to shut down. They said my organs were shutting down while I was in the emergency room while my dad was signing me in. So they told my parents that I was dying and that I was going to die if I didn't have immediate blood transfusions, because I had a disorder where all of the blood would leave my body. So I'd had that happen. I had those transfusions. I was better for about 10 years. And then I was living here in the DC area. That was in Richmond, Virginia. And I started to recognize some of the same signs. I was very weak. I was very tired. I was having trouble doing things. I remember I went with my son on a roller coaster, and it felt like murder. And I used to like roller coaster, but it was an excruciating. So I went to the doctor and I'd asked her could she please check my blood count. I told her about my history and I was really concerned about what was going on, but she never followed up with me. I kept trying to call back to get results of my test results, and I didn't hear back. And so I happened to be at a birthday party with my son, and that's when I got the call from the doctor saying, we don't think she's still alive, but if she is, we're trying to reach Roblyn Lewter. And I'm like, who is this? This is me. And he says, oh gosh, you're still alive. And he was the head doctor in the practice, and he says, this is Dr. So-and-so. The lab called us and said, there's no way you can be alive. You have no blood in your body. We need you to get to the hospital right away. And so when the doctor came, he kept saying to me, he says, I don't understand. There's everything in our medical books. He says, you were still working? I said, yes, sir. And he says, you were still walking? I said, yeah, I have 2 kids and I lived on the 4th floor and we didn't have an elevator. I had to walk up the 4th floor. I said, I'd have to stop and take breaks, but I would make it up there. What choice did I have? And he says, it must be a God. He says, because nothing in our medical book says that it's possible for someone to still be living without blood in their body. And so, but again, I think it was because, to be honest with you, Miss Thelma, because my brain would not feed into sickness, if that makes sense. I continue to believe in hope, although I knew I didn't feel well. And I could feel it when I was taking care of my kids. I knew physically I didn't feel well, but my brain still felt empowered. My brain still felt like, no, we're not giving up. We're going to keep moving on. And so just that power of that mind-body connection. My cousin, Dion, who is my same age cousin, and she passed on her daughter's birthday. And what's interesting about her passing on her daughter's birthday, and this is why I talk about the mind-body connection, because I was in there. Dion, we were living. And so I never talked about sickness with Dion. We were planning weddings. We were singing songs from our favorite movie. We loved Karate Kid, the first one. And so we would sit there and sing all the songs. We were singing so loud that the hospital had to close the door because we were so loud and we were living. But Dion had put in her mind, her daughter's birthday was before her birthday. And she says, I have to be alive until Amira's birthday. And I said, no, Dion, I kept pushing past her daughter's birthday. I said, you're going to be alive for her birthday, but I was planning Dion's birthday. I said, but on your birthday, I'm going to get a house on the beach and we'll have a wheelchair. But she just wanted her feet to touch the sand. But she kept saying Amira's birthday, her daughter's birthday. And she had planned that. And so every day we were talking, we were planning, we were having fun and laughing and dancing and singing. And she lived until she passed on her daughter's birthday. I think largely because she had put in her mind, I have to be alive until Amira's birthday. And so she made it through Amira's birthday and even her birthday party, and she ended up passing away that evening. But again, that mind-body connection, that ability to thrive. And so my good friend who worked for me in Baltimore, and who the cancer has returned, I said, we're having fun. We're not talking about that. She's getting treatment. She had the mastectomy. I said, that's fine, but we're going to laugh. We're going to dance. We're going to have fun. And so a few weeks ago, I picked her up and we went to Georgia and we had a great time celebrating St. Patrick's Day. And we were laughing and, and keeping in mind, her health. The point is, I think, from my experience, that power of the mind, the squeezing the lemon means we make a decision. We make a decision in life, Mrs. Thelma, and how we interpret the things that happens to us. There are things that are going to happen that we can't control, but we do make a decision in our brains. Are we going to laugh? And the research shows, and I know you've had presenters talk about this, but the research shows that when we are positive, it has a positive impact on our bodies. I want you to remember that mind-body connection. Our bodies respond to our minds. Your body doesn't physically feel the pain. It's your brain that's telling your body, oh, I'm in pain now. Oh, okay, I feel the pain. So we want to feed our minds hope, resilience, strength, thriving, being victors and not victims, right? Being victorious in every step of the way.
Thank you. And let me just see if any of our listening or viewing audience have any questions. And while they're deciding if they have questions, one of the other things, I know you've done a lot of work around trauma and abuse.
Yes.
Could you speak a couple of minutes about that? And then we're going to move on to see if no one else has any questions, we'll take some announcements. Okay.
Yes. Well, yeah. So I've worked with trauma and abuse for years. And that's a wide topic. I'm not sure exactly what you want me to do, but one of the things that
Well, could you tell us about your personal experience with it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my degrees are in psychology. So I have my bachelor's, my master's, and my doctorate in psychology. I also have, as you said earlier, an MBA. I also have public health and a master's in healthcare administration. And most of my career, I have focused on working with people, empowering people, even people who are in abusive situations. I recently wrote a book about people who are in relationship abuse, whether it's parents or not. That's on Amazon right now, and people who are dealing with narcissists and a relationship abuse. But most of my work has been about empowering individuals in all sorts of situations, even abusive situations, or people who have dealt with trauma. And how do we recognize how being in traumatic situations have impacted us personally, how it impacts our not only our emotional state, but our mental state, and sometimes our physical state, and sometimes how we can repeat those cycles in other situations. How when we get healthy inside, then that helps us to remove ourselves from those traumatic situations, and how that does not have to define us. Just because we've been in those situations, it does not have to define us. I go around the world now, so I work in countries around the world, whether it's South Africa, Ghana, also, so I'm presenting in Kuwait in about a week or so from now. But I work around the world helping people understand how what this means from their cultural perspective, meaning that how we deal with trauma, for example, here in the United States, may not be the same that they can deal with it in Ghana. It may not look the same in South Africa. It may not look the same in Kuwait. So helping people understand healing trauma and abuse from their perspectives. I have spent years working with not only substance abuse in the substance abuse world, but dealing with people from domestic violence and rape crisis victims as well. And then again, just individuals who have been in these cycles of abuse from parents and so forth. And one of the things I think is really important for our physical healing, Mrs. Thelma, is that mental and emotional healing. Because sometimes I think one of the most impactful things that happened to me when you talk about abuse was at a senior center here in DC. And typically once a year, I try to go to a senior center and I'll do a motivational empowerment speech or seminar. And this one year, a couple of years ago, the seniors loved it so much, so they asked me, could I come back? So I came back and did a part 2 of empowering. But I had a woman who was there, and she was having some trouble. Older woman, she was in her 80s, but she was still struggling with the abuse that she had endured as a child. For her, it was this sexual abuse as a child. And even in her 80s, she was talking to me and she was still stuck. And she was talking about how her uncle had sexually abused her and why did he do this to her. And then we were able to identify how this abuse and her struggling with this abuse had really impacted so many things throughout her life cycle. So I think it's really important when we're at a place of healing, especially physically, right? That we also work on releasing. We work on releasing and healing some of our traumas from the past, because so many of those things that we leave undealt with, so many of those things that we don't release and don't find a healthy way to release, we hold on to mentally, even when we think we pushed it in the back of our minds. And for many people, they come from communities where it's not customary to talk about things. Right. When I was just in South Africa, I was talking with some people who said that, in their communities, you just don't talk about it. Right. We just don't talk about this. We move forward. We don't talk about that. Where family members will say that happened to me too, but we don't talk about that. We move forward. You brush it off, but that's unhealthy, and it can impact our physical health, especially when we're dealing with different physical challenges. It's very important that we heal mentally and emotionally as well, and learn to I wouldn't say learn, but work on releasing some of that trauma from the past.
Okay, thank you for covering that. Now, before we move on, are there any questions? We could take a couple of, or maybe at least one question, if someone has a burning question they'd like to pose to Dr. Lewter. It looks like you covered everything that was on people's mind. You've done an excellent job in doing that. And I am so pleased that all of our sessions are recorded, but particularly this one, that others can go back and listen to it or look at it, because we're experiencing some very challenging times, and what we're going through is affecting a lot of people mentally, with loss of job, loss of insurance, almost for some loss of identity, because some of us are our jobs. And so I think it would be very beneficial that people will have this recording to go back to and get some advice from what you're saying.
And Ms. Thelma, if I can say one more thing, I just want to encourage everyone. I know there's so much happening that people are talking about around the world. Even when I was in South Africa traveling to the airport, the taxi driver wanted to talk about it. But I want to say this, remember that all of these things are happening, it impacts all of us. It impacts me. But I like to consider it noise. We're staying positive despite. We're having faith, whatever you have faith in. We're having faith despite the noise. We're staying positive and optimistic despite the noise. Remember, your mind. If I can share one last thing, I'm going to share. This is true. And I have so many examples of this. But if I can just share with you, I had a university I worked with that paid me a good amount of money, had closed. They had to close a couple of years ago. And I just purchased 2 properties, and I had all of these bills and mortgages. And my mother looked at me and she says, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm positive. I'm optimistic. Things are working out in my favor." And she goes, "I hear you, but shouldn't you be looking for something?" I said, "I'm positive I will." I said, "But I'm optimistic. Things are working out. I'm not feeding into that." And everyone else that I worked with was going, "Oh, woe is me, woe is me." But I was positive and optimistic. Things are working out. I got a phone call. I don't even know how, right? But I happened to check my voicemail, and it was a gentleman saying, "Hey, we're trying to reach Dr. Roblyn Lewter, and so somebody gave me your information, but we were interested in finding out if you'd be on our board of directors. And by the way, we were interested, and we're going to pay you, and we were interested if you would design this, and oh, maybe you could take on this director position for us," and so forth. And things just started to come to me. I say all of that to say, and I have so many examples of that. Despite the things that are happening, and I understand the loss of jobs, I understand the policies, we can't control that. Remember, the same stuff we're doing with our bodies, we're doing with our lives. The things we can't control, but we can control our mind. We can control our mental state. We can control how we look at things. So I encourage you, because that impacts our health, Ms. Thelma, I encourage you that despite the noise that's happening, remain positive. Remain forward, right? Moving forward. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, first president of Ghana, always says, I love him. And he says, forward ever, backward never, right? So remain looking forward ever, backward never, and positive and optimistic. Drown out the noise, and let's focus on the things that we can control.
I'd like to just mention, and Nkrumah it means a lot to me, as does Ghana. I mean, he's really a hero.
Oh, absolutely.
The one thing that I take from him and from his example, a bit of what you said, he did not give up. He faced an empire and he faced it down.
Absolutely.
I think when I'm speaking to Ghanaians in the bank, what they'll often say to me is, "Do you know about his mother?" And what it was, his mother was one of the leading poets of Ghana, in a matriarchal society.
Mhm.
And I think she taught what you're talking about, that resilience, know your truth, stand up to power, because it's not about you and Nkrumah. It's not about one person. It is about a collective. And the only thing I would add, and again, taking in Kumar again, because when a person says they're from Ghana, they wishes they never spoke with me because I'm
I love it. Oh no, I love
the
Ghana.
movie
Yeah.
star. But the one thing that Ghana teaches me very much, and that is that there is a beloved community,
Yes.
and the community empowers the individuals,
Yes.
and the power is used to help the most vulnerable.
Yes.
You use that power in that direction, like you're moving out into a circle.
Yes.
And you're alluding to this. You're working about that, but I wanted to kind of lift up with the
Absolutely.
example of Nkrumah, the idea
Yes.
that it's independence, not just for Ghana. But
No.
once he opened that door, it began, he opened the
For the
floodgates,
world. For the
basically, into the
world.
world. Exactly.
For the world. He
It's
was the first
unbelievable.
country, but look at all of the other countries now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I just would say that, and I do believe my own spirituality, which is Irish spirituality. So I'm not getting other people's, you know what I mean? I'm not borrowing. But
Yeah.
in the beloved circle concept, when you are talking about the crisis in your life, it is my understanding that there's an ancestral bond of the living and
Absolutely.
the dead, and they are with you and they are present. And that's another thing in Ghana. When they go through those ceremonies, in the birth of a child and the marriage, I will ask them, when are the ancestors present? At what point at which, when you lay on those hands, is the ancestor present? And it's so beautiful for me when I can look into somebody's face and they'll look as like, who are you? And I'm saying I'm Irish. And we can together begin to understand that, because that's spiritual power.
Absolutely.
And that is
Absolutely.
faith. It doesn't have to be
Absolutely.
Orthodox faith, but that is faith in that purpose. And again,
Absolutely.
Ghana has so much to teach us.
I go to Ghana about 2 or 3 times a year. I love it so
Oh,
much. And
you are
when I
so
stand
fortunate.
in the last sleigh, when I stand in that last bath and I feel that power, I feel that ancestral power. But I think also what you have here, and when you talk about that collective spirit, and that's what this is about. I want everybody in this meeting, everyone who's watching, it's not about the individual. It's about us collectively coming together, collectively lifting each other up, that collective spirit of healing, right? But that you're not alone. Mrs. Thelma, that's what you're doing essentially with this, is building that collective spirit. No, and I agree. Ghana's it's a special place. I love it. I go 2 to 3. It's so funny. They joke with me. I'm doing some work with a few programs in Ghana now to help them, but they joke. They said, just here to Ghana. I said I would love to, because it's empowering. And you're absolutely right. It's just looking it down. No matter what happens, and Mrs. Thelma knows, and I could go on and on. I have so many examples in my personal life that I haven't even talked about, where I just stare it in the face, but I look it down. I'm optimistic. And you're right, that ancestral spirit, that collective healing, right? Believing in that allows me to push forward no matter what, no matter what. And so we encourage whomever's watching this video, hopefully you'll take that from this, because ultimately that's what it's about. The power of the collective, the power of the collective, the power of healing, the power of resilience, that resilience in your spirit, and pulling from it. And I love when you talked about ancestral spirit, because that's my belief. My belief is that my ancestors are with me constantly.
They're real.
Watching.
Not
They
a
are. They're
figure of
real.
speech.
They're watching over me.
Ladies, I would really love to hear more about the ancestral spirit too. But we are moving up to around 8 o'clock, and I have a couple more things to do. And I know, Lorraine, how deep she is into the ancestral spirit. We could go on for another 3 or 4 hours on that. And so at some point, we will have to invite you back, both of you. But in the meantime, I hope that the two of you will connect beyond this meeting and continue to share those common bonds and thoughts that you have uplifted us with this evening. I really appreciate that. And so with that, I do like to just make a couple of announcements. One, the Southwest Neighborhood Assembly is having a meeting on Monday, April the 21st at 7 p.m. at Arena Stage. And it's in part in recognition to Volunteer Month where a number of Southwest organizations will be present, sharing information, knowledge, and even good times. Also, our next support group meeting, I just want to remind everyone about that, is on Wednesday, May 21st at 7 p.m. And we will welcome back Dr. Elma Huerta, who is a clinical professor of medicine in the Division of Hematology and Oncology at George Washington University. And I mentioned Alejandra Hurtado Mendoza will be our MC. And we will also have a young postdoctorate fellow from the Lombardi Comprehensive Cancer Center at Georgetown University to present on creating and testing a self-acupuncture intervention for breast cancer survivors. And I am pleased that the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund was a key community partner in that study. So I hope you will.
Why didn't you want to get with your?
Someone, if you could please mute. Thank you, Laura. Okay. And so on behalf of the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund, thank you for your wonderful tributes, your attentiveness tonight, and certainly I want to thank our great speakers, Dr. Roblyn P. Lewter and Ms. Lorraine Nagy from the World Bank, and for helping to put the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund on a good standing, and that we're moving now toward a next decade of providing great support to those who need it. And so with that, I do want to direct your attention to the special thanks. Our newsletter editor, Lashanah Thomas Walker. And by the way, in today's newsletter, there is a feature article on Dr. Roblyn Lewter. Last month, we had a feature article on, or I should say in February, we had a feature article on Alan Herbert. And our newsletter continued to feature the great work of our speakers and supporters. Now, I'm going to ask you, because we like to celebrate indefinitely throughout the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund. Some of you have wanted to make tributes and we didn't get to have them announced, but I encourage everyone to send in a tribute. Some of them will be posted on our website. Some of the quotes will be used when we are applying for grants, and some of them will just be used as quotes when I'm talking during our meeting to say, one of our participants made the following statement. So feel free to send in a tribute. It can be as short, as succinct as you like, or it could be several paragraphs. But some of them will be posted, and for space purposes, we may have to edit some of it down to size. So thank you so much. And if there are not any pressing questions or concern, I would like to bid you farewell and see all of you next week. But I am remiss. I did not make a very important announcement that the Georgetown McCourt School of Public Policy has awarded the Thelma D. Jones Breast Cancer Fund a $5,000 grant through their class foundation work. Yes, thank you. And I've had the great honor of working with 2 Georgetown students, Danilai and Anu. And I'm also very happy that I graduated from Georgetown University's Executive Nonprofit Management Program, and I am working with Dr. Kathy Krepman, who was a professor during the time that I was completing that program. It's a master levels program, and I completed that program in 2005, shortly after I retired from the World Bank. As a matter of fact, it was part of my World Bank retirement benefit. So I am so happy about that grant, and we will, the funds from that grant will help to increase our communications efforts. We hope to create a new brochure, and we have to expand on our social media activity. So I am really honored to have received that grant, and there will be a special program for it. And I would be happy if someone is free, please let me know and I will share the details. I can take as many as 6 guests with me. So that was the great news for the evening. And Laura Howell, I am happy to see you. You're on mute. You're still on mute, Laura.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I'm so glad that I finally remembered. I was sitting up here doing much of nothing. And all of a sudden I looked at the time. I said, oh my God. I said, I was supposed to be on this. And I jumped on. And when I saw your face, I was so glad. I was so happy that I didn't miss the whole thing. Because I'm here to support you, Thelma.
Yes, you are, Laura.
I'm here to support all cancer victims. I told you my older sisters had 7 different cancers. We're talking about from 10 to 20 years. She did not die. She died at 93. She didn't die from cancer. She was able to recover from each and every last one of them. She died because she fell and hit her head and had a stroke. But she was 93 and a half years old. So that just goes to show you that God is still in the plan.
That's right. And she could say, cancer doesn't have me.
No, and she didn't. And my sister was a scientist. And she actually had labs in her home, the whole 9 yards. I asked her one day, Thelma, did she think her being exposed to so much cancer cells, did it affect her? And by that time, she couldn't talk. But she shook her head and said, yes. Yes, but she didn't die from cancer.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it really is. Okay. Thank you, Laura, for sharing that. And thank you so much for being a big supporter of various community activities here in our community. It is residents like us that help our community to rise, thrive,
And rise.
Yes. Okay. So
Love you.
thank you. Good night, everyone. And thank you, Perry, for allowing us to go live at your house for about the 10th time.
Good night, all. Good seeing you, Laura. Thank you,
you for
Thelma.
everything, Thelma.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, there's my girl.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Yes, enjoy this holiday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you,
God is
Thelma.
still in the plan, you all.
Yeah, always.
Thank you.
Thanks, Thelma.
Yeah.
Congratulations.